What's up everybody, and thank you for joining me for another video. My name is Whack4863, but you can call me Whack. In today's video, I'm going to show you 10 weapons that are super grindy to get. These are weapons that are difficult and they're going to take you time in the game, unless you happen to be one of those super lucky people that just happens to run through and hit the random number generator on every single one of these. Now, I'm not ranking these as top 10 weapons or anything like that. I just want to show you how hard some of these weapons in the exiled lands can be to get. Although the last weapon that I'm going to show you today is the hardest one to get, and it's the best, at least in its category. It's the best weapon you can get in its category. So let's jump right into this. And we're going to start with the Shield of Zebwith. Now, the Shield of Zebwith has damage of 45, armor pen of 11. It gives you bonus survival of +5, and it has durability of 6,500. Now, in order to get the Shield of Zebwith, you have to purchase it from Weeba Shamrock for 100 pearls. This is one of 2 weapons that you can purchase with pearls, and it is also one of the 2 weapons that are purchasable on the map. These are the only 2 legendary weapons that you can purchase in the exiled lands. The next on the list is the Sword of Enrukah, and this has to be purchased from Shamala the Pirate Queen, again for 100 pearls. Now, the Sword of Enrukah does 56 damage with 9% armor pen. Its bonus is +5 in grit, and it has durability of 1350. What makes these weapons so hard to get if you could just go out and purchase them from either of these people? Well, you need pearls in order to do that. And the only place you can find pearls is the Sunken City. You have to kill the Watcher above and the Captain below for pearls to drop. Now, when you kill these guys, you can loot 1 to 25 pearls from each one. What's interesting about this and what makes it even more grindy is that the loot tables in the dev kit normally have a single loot table that controls the percentage of drop or the amount of drop. This, for pearls, actually has 2 different loot tables. One of the loot tables says it can drop 1 to 5 pearls. The other loot table, which manages that loot table, says it can drop 1 to 5 times. So the way it works is the first loot table kicks in and says, well, I'm going to drop 2 pearls. The second loot table then kicks in and decides that it's going to drop 1 to 5. So if it dropped 5, then you would end up with 10 pearls. If it dropped 2, you would end up with 4 pearls. Now, I spawned in a lot of these guys, I want to say about 50, and I was able to get hundreds of pearls, right? But when you're thinking about grinding through the game and you know you have to go into a dungeon, you have to kill specific people in order to get a item that you're then going to trade, it makes it grindy. And honestly, the shield is probably more important because you could boost your survival and use that for harvesting. The sword, on the other hand, is not all that great. Sure, it looks really cool. These are the only 2 weapons that are gold colored, but the sword stats really aren't all that great. So this becomes a collectionist item. Now, if you're new here, guys, I'm going to invite you to hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you don't miss out on any of my future uploads. The next thing on the list is the Bestial Claws. Now, the interesting thing about the Bestial Claws is they actually have their own animation, and it's really cool. They've been nerfed throughout the process of introduction to now, however, they're still really cool. So let's take a look at their stats. Their damage is 45 with an armor pen of 18. They have 900 durability. Interesting fact about the Bestial Claws, they are one of the only weapons that will not accept any attachments or poison. The other weapon that comes to mind is the Claws of Jebelsog. Again, another set of claws, but neither one of these will accept an attachment or poison to be applied to them. Next is the Doom Hammer. Now, the Doom Hammer has damage of 55 and armor pen of 34, a durability of 2400. An interesting fact about the Doom Hammer is initially when it was launched, it would apply a critical hit on a random number generator basis. However, this was deemed very, very powerful by a lot of the PvP community and was since patched out of the game and does not exist in Conan Exiles anymore. Both the Doom Hammer and the Bestial Claws sit inside a single loot table with one additional item, so a total of 3 items in their loot table. And that loot table has a 25% chance of activating when you kill the enemy that is holding that loot table. And I say it this way because the enemies that you have to kill in order to get this is either the Rake or the Claw. Now these enemies have a 1% chance of spawning in a single location in the den. So first you have to get there at a time when that enemy has spawned, or either one has spawned, and then hope that once you kill it, you activate that loot table to get one of those 3 items. Now we're going to move into loot in the Unnamed City, but if you're enjoying this content, please leave a like on this video and subscribe for future ones. Clicking the bell will notify you when I upload another video. Now I've chosen a couple of weapons to highlight from the Unnamed City, and we are going to focus here on the skeleton bosses. Now all the skeleton bosses, a total of 4, contain the same loot table, or they operate on the same loot table. That loot table has 23 items in it, and you have a 30% chance of activating that loot table. And this is where the Sword of Crom resides. It is one of those 23 items. Now the Sword of Crom has 91 damage, 22 armor pen, and 2400 durability. However, this is a thrall only weapon because if a player character swings it, it uses all of their stamina in one swing. Now the Sword of Crom is probably the most highly sought after weapon in the Exiled lands as a thrall weapon, and it happens to be probably the best thrall weapon. Honestly, it's probably the best. The other weapon that I want to highlight out of this list, and there's a lot of good weapons in this list, but the other weapon is going to be the Lying Bastard Sword with 51 damage and 9% armor pen and durability of 1350. Now what's really cool about this weapon, it is a two-handed sword that you wield with one hand, and it utilizes the one-handed axe animation. And before you go thinking that that's it, that's not it. So this is a two-handed sword, which means it has the reach of a two-handed sword. You can reach out and touch someone with this sword, but it has the one-handed axe animation, which means that it applies cripple and bleed to your target. And for those of you that like to fight from horseback, this is a great weapon to use on horseback because it can reach farther than your other one-handed axes, and it can reach farther than your mace. On a side note, there's really nothing bad in this loot table. Everything's pretty good, so this is a great place to focus your attention and spend your time because you're not going to be upset with most of the things that you get from this loot table. And a fun fact about my journey through this loot table, the last thing and the thing that was hardest for me to get from this loot table was actually the Black Tusk shield, and that shield alone took me about a month to obtain. However, it's a really cool shield. It looks like a bone shield and it has 15,000 durability. Moving on to the Reach of the Red Mother Bow. Now the Reach of the Red Mother Bow has 30 in damage and 30% armor pen, 1500 durability. This is by far the best bow in the Exiled lands, and it's pretty coveted by most players. So you get this bow from fighting the Red Mother. Now the Red Mother's legendary loot table has a total of 8 items in it, and you have a 30% chance to unlock that loot table. However, above and beyond the loot table, what really makes this particular weapon grindy is how buggy the fight can be with the Red Mother. It's not that it's a difficult fight per se, or even challenging if you know what you're doing. It's that if you've ever taken a thrall to fight the Red Mother, you know that thrall is going to end up in the mesh, and it's going to decide whether it's going to continue to fight from the mesh or not. I definitely recommend a two-handed sword if you're going to take a thrall, and if you're not going to take a thrall and you're going to go solo, bring a shield and whatever your favorite one-handed weapon is. Now we made it to the last 3, and these loot tables are gonna make your head spin. However, there's a mechanic that makes it even harder to get than any of the weapons that I've showed you so far. If you're enjoying this video, please go ahead and whack that like button, show me some support. The Mace of Thag and the Scythe of Thag are our next two weapons. Now, the Mace of Thag has 48 damage and 25% armor pen. It gives you a bonus of 5 vitality, and it has 1650 durability. The Scythe of Thag has 72 damage and 0% armor pen. Strength of +5 with 1800 durability. Now, the interesting thing about the Scythe of Thag is that it is the only two-handed axe that applies bleed, and it applies bleed really fast. Now, the Mace and Scythe of Thag share a loot table, and that loot table has a 12.5% chance of activating. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Thag or the Smoke Demon or the Wine Cellar boss, however you want to call him, he's the only NPC on the map that has a 1-hour respawn timer. That's right, he will not respawn until an hour after he's been killed, which means he can only be killed in a day 24 times. That's it. And that is why the Hammer of Thag is the #1 hardest, grindiest weapon to get. Now, the Hammer of Thag has 65 damage, 31 armor pen. It has a bonus of grit and strength at 3 points each, and its durability is 2400. It resides in a loot table all on its own. It's the only item in this loot table, and that loot table has a 1% chance of activating. That is absolutely crazy. When you think about it, you can only kill him 24 times in a day, and you only have a 1% chance of that loot table activating. That is crazy odds stacked against you getting this weapon. However, for you lucky souls out there, I told you that the Mace and the Scythe were in one loot table and that the Hammer was in another loot table. That means that both of these loot tables can be triggered at the same time, and essentially you could get either a Mace or a Scythe, and you could get the Hammer. So the Hammer could drop, and you could also drop either the Scythe or the Mace, all at the same time. And I have tested this in game. I spawned in a ton of these guys through the admin panel, and admin killed them, and I did have it drop, so it does work in game. So hopefully this helps you collectionists out there understand the grind that's in front of you when you're going after some of these weapons. Now, that's all I have for this video, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. You can pick one of the two videos coming up on the screen to watch next. I hope you've enjoyed this video as much as I've enjoyed making it. I'll catch you next time. Peace. I'd like to give a big shout out to all my YouTube members. Y'all are absolute legends. If you'd like to become a legend, there's a button below that says join. That'll give you all the details. I'd like to thank all my subscribers for their continued support, likes, comments, and general awesomeness. If you're not subscribed, you can start your free trial today and cancel at any time. Clicking the bell is highly recommended so you get notified when I upload another video.